Hey folks, John Becker here, Union Township trustee and former state representative, bringing to you the February edition of the Becker Report. And here is the draft. I'm going to be sending that out in the next couple of hours, hopefully. But hey, anyways, it's going to be kind of just a brief introduction. I cover really just three major issues. One of which I start with the John Hopkins study, where it talks about the COVID lockdowns, and I want to compliment Governor DeWine for saving lives. I guess the 0.2%, and suggest maybe he ban automobiles, ban travel, and ban tall ladders and gas furnaces and household poisons in order to save more lives. Because it's all about saving lives. There's much more that can be done, and of course, I'm being facetious here. Hey, the other thing I have on here is some comments about the supply chain and labor shortages. You might want to consider employers creating a hostile work environment, perhaps having to do with vaccine mandates and mask mandates. And of course, the CDC, from their own data, shows that the masks are virtually useless. That is, with a less than 2% efficacy. And that's the best case scenario. And I link to that as well. And that's the CDC's data. That's not mine. The last thing I have is that the Union Township trustees recently voted to allow concealed carry of firearms for licensees in our buildings. And so following this brief introduction, I've got kind of a part one and part two video of the trustees meetings where I explain all that, the laws behind it. And I think the first video is about 9 minutes. The next one is 12 minutes. I got it all connected at the end of this. And then at the very end, if you want to contact me, that information is at the end of this video. So make sure you subscribe. BeckerGOP.com will get you the, subscribe to the Becker Report, and of course subscribe to my YouTube channel. So if you want to watch the proceedings about passing concealed carry, watch the next, 21 minutes of this video. Otherwise, I'll see you next month. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Moving forward to item E, discussion of concealed carry regulations at Union Township buildings. So this is new business as an open item of discussion.
I'll start.
Yes, sir.
I got kind of a three-point, discussion on this. And item one is the longest. So I got a document from March 9th, 2017. So I was a member of the General Assembly at the time. We had just changed the law. It was in the process of going into effect with always normally a 90-day waiting period. So it was during the 90-day waiting period. And I came to the Board of Trustees at that time. It was a different board than sitting up here now. And gave them a presentation on what the law said previously, what the new law was, and encouraged the board to allow open carry in the buildings, in the government buildings. I'm sorry, I got a cold, I'm still trying to get over that. Open carry is allowed. What the law permitted, or the change in the law, made it permissible for the trustees as well as county officials, villages, made it permissible for them to allow concealed carry. So for CCW or CHL, depending which terminology you want to use, CHL is concealed handgun license. That's what's found in the Ohio Revised Code. CCW is more common in the lexicon, concealed carry weapon. And so the question would be, do we allow, cannot stop open carry, but it is what it is, that's state law. The question is, do we allow concealed carry or not? And under the current policy, and the default position under the law, is that without regard to if you have a license or not, it just doesn't matter. If you're concealed carrying in this building, it's a felony. And so I did a presentation to ask the board to change that and permit it. So I had 2 pages. This was kind of the original document here. And one point I brought up was that with the school board here, they have school board meetings. One of the questions would be, during a school board meeting, could somebody carry a gun? So that's actually a different question because we're not talking about concealed carry versus open carry. We're talking about can you carry a gun at all, period. So the way the law reads on that is there's no guns allowed. There's always like exceptions to everything like law enforcement and such. But generally speaking, there's no guns allowed in what's called a school safety zone. And a school safety zone is defined as any place where there's a school activity. Then you get into the question of, well, what is a school activity? Well, that's the kind of stuff courts decide. So the argument would be, and again, a court would have to decide this, is a school board meeting a school board activity? If a court decided the answer to the question is yes, then open carry is not allowed in a school board meeting, let alone concealed carry. So that's really not a question for us tonight. It's just kind of an aside for additional information. So that was pretty much the first page of what I gave. The second page, I started out with going over Ohio Revised Code 9.68a. And it's kind of lengthy, and it's very broad language about kind of how, why, and where guns are allowed in the state of Ohio. And it's very broad, and there's always exceptions written beyond this. But pointed out that A gives kind of the broad permission, and it's understood to be open carry, even though it doesn't say open carry. And there's other sections of the code referring to concealed carry. Now, there's a sign outside this building that says no guns allowed. That only, it's not clear on the sign, that only refers to concealed carry. Open carry is permitted. So in 9.68b, that's just some brief language that says, open carry is permitted, and if the powers that be tries to shut that down, then you can get sued, and they're gonna collect from you. Not that it apply to retail establishments. If there's a sign in the door of a retail establishment that says no guns allowed, that's no guns at all, period, and that's their prerogative. So what I want to read to you is this last section of, I guess it's the last half of the second page on this. Which I think sums up where I was at the time. Then I have some more current information. So again, open carry is legal in this building. Under current law, concealed carry in this building is a felony of the 4th degree. It does not matter if you have a CHL or not. Again, CHL is concealed handgun license. In my opinion, the law is contrary to public safety. For example, if Joe Citizen were to walk into this room with a sidearm and unknowingly sits down next to a deranged individual, that person could fight for the gun with deadly consequences. Conversely, if Joe Citizen were carrying concealed, nobody would ever know. However, if the deranged person brought his own gun into the building, Joe Citizen would be in a good position to save the lives of many. I'd also like to point out that qualifying for a CHL requires a background check. Additionally, they must be fingerprinted, photographed, and trained in gun safety and marksmanship. These people are the cream of the crop of the citizenry and are not the people you need to worry about. And then item number 2. All right, I'm going to wing it. Item number 2, it was in the September issue of the Becker Report, where I put in there some examples of, if Rambo were to walk into this room, which he's perfectly allowed to under state law. You can walk in here, locked and loaded. You can be wearing camouflage. You can be, wearing body armor, and you can have a backpack full of ammunition. State law permits all of that, and he can't be thrown out unless he is doing something threatening. Carrying a gun in and of itself is not considered threatening. However, if Grandma comes in here who has a CHL and a .22 revolver, in her purse or under her blanket, oh no, that's a felony. She's going to jail for that. So I think that's a stark inequity in the law, and I think that that needs to be changed. And the third item I had, and this was just a brief story kind of on this topic in the General Assembly, where I was the chairman of the Federalism Committee, and we were hearing a gun bill. And one of the ladies that gave testimony against the bill, and testimony is what we call, if you're at the podium and you're giving your thoughts for or against the bill, we call that testimony. And she was a minister, and she said something to the effect of, there is no God-given right to carry a gun. And I got out my tablet and I looked that up and I got thinking, well, no, wait a minute, I think there's an argument to the other side of that. And I want to say it was in, I got it written down somewhere. It's in Luke. I had to find it. But anyway, it's in Luke where Jesus told his disciples to carry a sword. So I quoted that to the minister, and I said to her, I said, this isn't my area of expertise, it's yours. How are we today what does that verse mean to us today? Or how are we to live by that verse today is what my question was. And she and I just stared at each other like two cats, squared off. It was a pregnant pause, seemed like minutes, it was really just a few seconds, and she finally blurted out, I'm not going to get into a theological debate with you. And I said, fine, and I just moved on to the next question. With that, Mr. Chairman, those are my remarks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, final thing, I didn't find my notes I was looking for before.
Yeah.
My apologies for misplacing that. But that scripture verse was Luke 22:36. Jesus said to his apostles, by now, if you have a purse, take it, and also, I said, but now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. That was what I was ad-libbing prior.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Becker, and so old business, item number 1, we've got a discussion of concealed carry regulations at Union Township buildings. Mr. Wright, would you like to introduce the discussion topic, or Mr. Becker?
I think Mr. Becker may have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, so what I want to do is, so we had a robust discussion on this at the last meeting, and to a certain extent, I want that discussion to continue. But first, I just want to open it up with a motion, and hopefully there'll be a second. So I move to adopt Resolution 2022-05.
I'll second.
Any discussion, gentlemen?
That's, yes.
There we go.
I have a number of things to say on this. So first off, I'm just going to read just a couple of pertinent pieces of this resolution. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So the title is simply Resolution Pursuant to Revised Code 2923.126B7, which is permitting the carrying of a concealed handgun in government buildings. That was something the General Assembly changed the law, I think, back in 2017, allowing trustees, city council, county commissioners to allow concealed carry. So I'm going to read you, there's like 4 whereases and 3 different sections. I'm going to read you 2 of the whereases and 1 of the sections. So this is really just kind of getting into the meat of it. So whereas Ohio is an open carry state, and the open carry of legally owned firearms cannot be prohibited in the non-leased areas of the Union Township government buildings per Revised Code Section 9.68A. And if anyone wants to read that, it's a good read about the gun laws, kind of an overview, and I'd also encourage you to read 9.68B. So it's important the way those two work together. The second whereas, or the second one I'm going to read anyway, public safety is paramount, and no law-abiding citizens should be prohibited from exercising their God-given right to self-defense as guaranteed by Article 1, Section 4 of the Ohio Constitution. And that says, in part, the people have the right to bear arms for their defense and security. And of course, everybody's aware of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. So then you get into the therefore be resolved portion of this. Be it so resolved by the Board of Trustees, Union Township, Claremont County, with limited home rule authority, as set forth in Chapter 504 of the Ohio Revised Code, and in accordance with Revised Code 2923.126B7, and that is the key statute here. And then Section 1, and this gets into the meat of it. So, pursuant to 2923.126, a licensee, somebody with a concealed carry license, CCW or CHL, same terminology. A licensee under Revised Code 2923.125 or 2923.1213 is hereby authorized to carry a concealed handgun in Union Township government buildings, this is the important clause, unless otherwise prohibited in leased areas or by federal or state law. I'll read that one more time. Unless otherwise prohibited in leased areas or by federal or state law. So let's talk about, just briefly, an example of leased areas and otherwise by federal or state law. So, for example, in this building, we have a post office downstairs, and by federal law, you can't have a gun, whether it's concealed or open, you just can't have one in a post office. Also, we have a leased area for Claremont senior citizens. I believe that's a private organization as opposed to a governmental entity. So, by default, open carry and concealed is allowed. However, if they were to post a sign, which they have the right to do, post a sign that says no guns allowed, then you can't open carry or concealed. That's true with any private business anywhere in the state of Ohio. Also, we have, and I guess this is the west wing of the Civic Center, we have the West Claremont School Board that leases that facility. So we don't have the authority to overrule a lease or do any kind of resolution of this nature in a leased area. But in addition to that, them being a school board, they fall under a special statute of the Ohio Revised Code, of which I did some research on, but from the last meeting when a question came up, and I got looking at those statutes a little bit more closely, and it answered actually some of the questions I had. So what I would refer you to, if anybody's interested in wondering about how gun laws affect schools, I would refer you to section 2901.01 and drop down to section C1, and it describes a school safety zone. So that's kind of a generic term, school safety zone, what you'll always hear in terms of the Ohio Revised Code on these gun laws. So a school safety zone consists of a school building, school premises, school activity, and school bus. Then I'd bring your attention down to section C3 of that same statute, and it describes a school activity, it defines it, means any activity held under the auspices of a Board of Education. So arguably, when the Board of Education is having a school board meeting in this room, or anywhere for that matter, arguably, that is a school activity, and therefore it falls under 2901 as a school safety zone. And unless the board specifically authorizes somebody to have a gun, which they have the right, they can't authorize employees. That was a Madison school decision, but they can't authorize any member of the public. But it would have to be a school board authorization. So as long as they haven't authorized anybody to carry guns, no guns are allowed at all. No open carry, no concealed. Let's say it's in this room, they're having the meeting. So you couldn't have a gun in this room during the duration of that meeting. So that's where you get into, the previous wording about, excluding the leased area, and where it says otherwise prohibited, by federal or state law. So again, a school board meeting in this room would be under that otherwise prohibited language on that. With that, gentlemen, any questions for me or further discussion?
I'll just say, Mr. Becker, thank you for the time and research on that. And, like I've told you since you told me, a while back, I support you, and I know this is something you've carried on since being a state rep, so be honored to help see, the law that you've passed as a state rep come to fruition somewhere here in the limited home rule township where we support giving, rights to our residents. So I support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Guns are an area of expertise that I've developed over 8 years. It's kind of like 8 years of law school, being in the General Assembly. And, so that's the one area I've concentrated on the most and specialized in the most. And so, ask me anything about gun laws, and if I don't know, I know who does know. So, because I've spent a lot of time studying statutes.
Are we the first township to do this, if we pass this?
In Claremont County, Goshen Township has passed a similar resolution.
Really?
I don't know of any other township, and I don't believe the county has.
What about Hamilton?
I don't know who has or hasn't in Hamilton County.
Well, good. I think it sets a precedence, and I'm good with it. And so basically, as long as school board is not in session, I can conceal I can't go over there, and I may or may not be able to go to the senior building if they don't have a sign post.
As long as there's no
Right.
sign, you can go. Now, with the school board, whether they have a sign or not, don't go in there with a gun.
Now, Mr. Wright, now, when the school, West Claremont, does their basketball games, I assume that area is off limits, correct?
Well, I mean, we would have to, well, because it's actually a youth basketball association.
school.
It's not
Oh.
a school itself, so.
Oh.
It's not a school activity.
Yeah,
Fair
that's
enough.
cool.
Fair enough, okay, well, I agree with Mr. Logue, now, look, I'm a Second Amendment guy, I'm an Air Force guy, believe wholeheartedly in the Second Amendment, but this is clearly your passion, you've done a lot of research on it. Yeah, thanks for your hard work.
Thank you.
I think the other important, just quick note on that too is, there's a lot of beliefs that people have in the community, which is the guns, from a good citizen that's there, the guns may already be there. And this just makes a good citizen, not a criminal. So it's kind of the good guy with the gun theory versus bad guy with the gun theory,
Yeah,
so.
and kind of along those lines, Mr. Chairman, and something else I was doing some research on and some videos I had seen in the past. And there was one specifically I was looking for. I didn't find it, but I did find a couple of other things. And I was considering actually showing those videos, for during tonight's meeting, but I didn't pursue it. But I can just describe it. One was a guy walked into a disgruntled citizen, walked in, it was a school board meeting. And of course, typically in school board meetings, you don't have metal detectors and, security guards wanding people. We certainly don't hear anywhere in Claremont County, except the courthouse, of course. And he came in and had some complaints, and he pointed the gun directly at the superintendent of the school, sitting here just like us, school board, and opened fire. He fired like 14 shots. And eventually a security guard showed up and took him down, and then he took his own life. But fortunately, in that situation, nobody else got hurt. I was watching another video where it was a township meeting in some court, I think it was somewhere in Pennsylvania. He shot multiple people, killed, I think, 3 people. His comment to the media afterwards was, "I wish I had killed more." And then the last example I have, it was a city council meeting someplace, I don't remember where it was. And it was, it's like us, except it was city council, and it was one of the city councilmen, so there was gunshots like outside the door. And so everybody's alarmed, and, they're hitting the deck, what's going on? Well, one of the city councilmen had a concealed carry permit, and he was packing heat. And he's sitting like this at the ready, waiting for whoever's coming through that door to take him out if he had to. And he's, protecting all the people around him. So, that's something, hopefully Chief Caviglia is armed over there. That if that happened in this room, that's who we'd be relying on. And with this resolution, all of us who have concealed carry permits, Chief Caviglia wouldn't be alone, being the only person in the room who can shoot back.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes along the lines with the state of Ohio. I think right now has a bill on the floor too for being a constitutional carry state too. So we're
That's a
going
different
to be more lined up with that. But yes, we'll save that. I got at this time, if you're good on discussion, I'll ask Mr. Campbell for a vote, or I'll ask for a motion on 2022. Did we already have a motion
Yeah, we're ready
support?
for roll call.
Roll call, please, then.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Dills?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen.